Let's go. Going knocking doors in 20-degree weather is not amazing. And something called dedicated sacrifice. You see, next to the word success, to be sacrificed, there's a lot of sacrifice that's involved. Then what is a life amazing is being able to outlast pretty much everybody.
Let's go. We are on our fourth stop of the Tour de Massachusetts. We are selling salesmen on selling. You know, I think there's one word that's more important than any other word when it comes to your life, and that is purpose. You know, to be able to give back. Massachusetts is where I'm home. This is where I was born and raised. And watching Massachusetts salesmen, to be able to give back to them, something special for me. So we're about to go on our fourth stop of the Tour de Mass, and we're here in Hudson, Massachusetts with Team Sunshine. Let's see what they got. We got to give them more than they expect. Let's go. Yeah, when you spend years in Florida and you come back to Massachusetts, it's brick. It's pretty cold up here. Ready to go back to Naples. All right, so we're about to hop in there. I don't really think too much when I go to speak. I think the biggest thing is it's a reflex. I think if you come from a genuine place to actually try to help people, you don't really need to think. Just kind of speak from the heart and try to change people's lives. That's why we do what we do. We should have never been called salespeople. We should have been called servants, because we're in the business of serving and helping people. And that's what we're going to do today. You can make plays, you can make excuses. We're not making any excuses on this trip. We're making plays.
Let's go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Hey, we got some Massachusetts sales professionals in the room today, huh? What's crazy is after traveling all across the United States, traveling in Canada, going to China, I can definitely say that Massachusetts salespeople are the best salespeople in the world right here. So give it up for yourself. Awesome. So I'm really excited. Are you guys excited to be here today? You guys are, wait. Are you guys excited to be here today? Let's go, let's go. We each have a challenge today. I'm gonna let you know right now, not taking notes is like eating spaghetti with a spoon. You're gonna get a lot on you, but you're not gonna get a lot in you. You see, I don't knock doors. I go out there and I throw a party. You know, I'm a professional trick-or-treater, and I love to do what we do. I've been involved with solar since 2014. I got involved with door-to-door sales in 2008. Really excited to be here. Today, you guys are gonna be hearing from the golf caddy, the 16-year-old that started from the bottom, and starting from the bottom is not a deficit, that's a gift. I watched my parents struggle. They got down to their last 20 bucks, and I realized that decisions would decide your wealth. I learned that at a very young age. And I want to share with you guys a lot of ideas, a lot of the fundamentals that I've learned over the course of my time as a professional trick-or-treater. So you're going to hear a lot of things today. I'm going to tell you right now, you can make plays or you can make excuses, but you can't make both. It's time for a lot of us to stop checking our Facebook and start facing your checkbook, because this is the year you guys are going to make it. You guys ready to get going today? Yes. Awesome. So make sure that you guys are able to, take notes. I want to talk to you guys about a lot of the fundamentals, but I want to talk to you guys really from the heart today, really what it takes to be great at this profession that we call door-to-door sales, how to be great at solar. And my goal for you guys is to have these aha moments. And as you have the aha moments, you start to think differently. I hired a speaking coach about a year ago, and he taught me a concept, a concept that will put yourself into the top 1% of all speakers. And all of you guys that want to get into leadership, the first level of leadership is leading yourself. But when he talked about speaking, he gave me this analogy, and I wanted to share with you guys right off the bat. He said, if you were to envision a tree, how many leaves are on a normal tree? Somebody give me an answer. If you were to picture a tree, how many leaves are on a tree? Thousands, right? A lot of leaves are on this tree. How many branches are on a tree? A lot, right? How many trunks are typically on a tree? One trunk of the tree. So during today's session, I want to always come back to the trunk of the tree. And the trunk of the tree is going to be clarity, because clarity of vision and clarity creates the conviction that you need to be great at life, to be great at this profession. There's one word that's more important than any other word when it comes to your life. Does anybody know what word that is? It's purpose, right? It's something that you have to constantly ask yourself. You see, in sales, we have to work harder on ourselves than we do in our profession. The harder that you work on yourself, the better that you are, the more that you can create clarity and you can create the things that you want in your life. So yeah, what I want to talk to you guys about today, we're going to start with talking about the practicing professional. We're going to talk about technique. We're going to talk about specific ways, that I utilize to sell solar. We're going to talk about how I program this computer up here. and the behavior that it takes really to be great at this profession. But when I say the practicing professional, what type of professions do you guys think of when I say a professional? Anything. A professional. What do you think of? Money line, everything you're doing off of the doors needs to be to get you in the groove when you're on the doors. What type of professionals are there? When you think of professional, what do you think? Athletes, okay? What else? Doctors. What else? Lawyers. What does a lawyer call their office? Their practice, right? That's a common word with any professional, is they are practicing professionals. But when we think about doctors, when we think about lawyers, when we think about athletes, for example, if I was the best basketball player in my high school, does that mean I'm going to make the NBA? Doesn't mean you're going to make the NBA. If I wanted to be a doctor, could I graduate high school and start performing open heart surgery? Now, what would I have to do if I wanted to become a doctor right out of high school? What would be the first thing I'd have to do? I'd go to school, I'd go to college, right? And that college is free or I'd have to pay for it, right? And that college is for 1 year. How many years would I have to go to college? 10 years. All right, so I finally get this piece of paper that says I'm a professional doctor. Then can I start performing open heart surgery, or what do I have to do after college? Starts with an R. Who knows the word? Residency, right? So I have this residency thing. Now I can start making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year doing residency, right? No, you can't. Once you finish residency, which is 10 or 12 years later, then you can finally get that professional contract. The aha moment that I'm going to give you guys right now is you all have the professional contract sitting right in front of you. When I was 18 years old, I heard on the radio that decisions would decide your wealth. And I really took that to heart because, I watched my parents struggle. My parents got divorced. My dad got down to his last 20 bucks every week. And, I realized that if it wasn't me that was going to make the plays, then it would be nobody, and I'd be living in that rat race of living week to week, getting down to my last $20. So I made that decision early in my life to dedicate myself to my craft, door-to-door sales, professional trick-or-treating. When we talk about the practicing professional, there's one thing that salespeople lack compared to all these other professions, and that's the willingness to actually pay the price that it takes to be great. You see, most people are interested in being successful with this career that we have when they need to be committed. Making that commitment, making that decision to say, hey, this is the year we're going to make it. This is the year where I'm going to put my last name on my back. And I think I break it down to a lot of the fundamentals being your technique, your attitude, and your behavior. The technique is the words that come out of my mouth. The attitude is what's programmed up here. And then the behavior of what you do. What you do occasionally will change nothing every single time. For me, I always say TOD, time on doors. So what is a salesperson? If I was to ask you what a salesperson is, what would you say? Somebody in the back here, what do you think a salesperson is? I'm going to be engaging you guys the entire day today. What is a salesperson?
Conviction.
Conviction. If I was to ask you to explain what a salesperson is, what do they do?
Somebody who sells something.
Somebody that sells something. Okay, what else? What is this?
Helping people solve their problems.
Helping people solve their problems, all right? Good, all good answers. So let's say I'm in Demoulas. You guys know Demoulas? I'm going way back, right? I haven't been here. I think they changed it to Market Basket, right? Yeah, so I was born and raised in Lowell, Massachusetts. They used to call it Demoulas. And I moved to Florida about 5 years ago. It was like my first time back in years. So, it's a pleasure to speak with you guys. And I'm thankful for you guys all being here today. Okay, so I'm like, all right, forget that person. Let me go out on aisle 9. And I tapped someone on the shoulder and I said, hey, what do you think of door-to-door salespeople? What are they going to say, right? Oh my gosh, door-to-door salespeople, I hate those people, right? You see, we should have never been called salespeople at the beginning. We should have been called servants, the way that you envision yourself. You have the ability to serve. You have the ability to help people. And that's one of the greatest parts about what we do. You see, I don't sell anybody anything. I help them get involved. I help them acquire. I put them into a better situation. See, I'm one of the decision makers. I'm an assistant buyer that takes that family's hand and helps them. If I didn't feel like I could help somebody, I couldn't sell anybody anything. I know deep down that I'm putting them into a much better situation. And that's what it comes from, is having a servant base when you go and sell. So some of the most important fundamentals, and we're going to talk about these today, it starts with clarity, okay? It starts with having clarity. That clarity of vision is something we're going to continue to go back to today on what we speak about. But when we talk about all these other professions, it comes down to whether or not you have that willingness to actually pay the price that it takes to be great. Paying the price with the effort, the learning, the time investment, and something called dedicated sacrifice. You see, next to the word success should be sacrifice, because there's a lot of sacrifice that's involved. Going knocking doors in 20-degree weather is not amazing. Having somebody slam the door in your face is not amazing. Having somebody tell you to get a real job is not amazing. You don't know what is amazing is being able to outlast pretty much everybody. I started this profession in 2008. I was a senior in high school. I used to skip my last class in high school to get out on the doors. By the end of the day, I'm like, nice, I made more than my principal today. The secret ingredient of this game that we call door-to-door sales is having fun. If you're not having fun, it's not worth it. You have to figure out a way to make this a game. You see, that's why I say I'm a professional trick-or-treater. I don't go and knock doors. I go on a grown man's Easter egg hunt. I realize, like, hey, if you every 7 doors you realize that Easter egg had $5,000 in it, everybody would be running door to door. But the problem is we're the only creature that faces rejection on a day-to-day basis. That's why rejection turns me on. That's why I'm amused by hostile people. As sales professionals, you can allow your highs to get too high or your lows to get too low. In a 24-hour period, you could have the highest high or the lowest low. One of the best things I heard when I was 18 years old was we have to maintain an even keel. How many of you guys have ever allowed your highs to get too high or your lows to get too low, right? All of us. If you didn't raise your hand, tell me the secret. I was working in Flint, Michigan one year, and I passed a church and the sign said, "He who angers you controls you." If you've never heard that, you should probably write it down. He who angers you controls you. Because when you start programming this information into the most powerful computer that there is, it helps you think differently. You see, building anything in life is energizing. Maintaining is exhausting. I'm going to repeat that for you guys that didn't hear it. Building is energizing. Maintaining is exhausting. When you go into a mode where you continue to maintain, you will eventually get worn out. You see, throughout life, you're going to find people that inspire you, and you're going to find people that drain you. I want to put my energy where I have influence. And that's one of my big secrets, is being able to have fun with this profession and what we do. So really what I wanted to start off with is breaking down my core principles of what I focus on to be great at this profession. And I think I break it down to these 5 specific things. First is clarity. Okay, the top salespeople, they shine with conviction. They have an absolute catching belief about themselves, their product, their service, their company. Clarity creates conviction. Having absolute crystallized thoughts, creating a myopic vision of what you want in your life, why you're doing it, and who you're doing it for. Clarity creates the conviction. Number 2 is going to be repetition. These are the 5 most important fundamentals that I focus on when I go and knock on somebody's door. Clarity creates the conviction. Number 2 is the repetition. You must hear, read, write, and say something 6 times to gain 62% of that retention. How many of you guys go through your sales process and the homeowner's like, "Sorry, I just can't afford this"? It's like, bro, I told you like 4 or 5 times, right? That's why repetition is so important part of your sales process. I repeat the same exact things over and over and over until they understand it. And they're like, "Oh, wow, okay, now I get it." Clarity, repetition, energy. When I was 18 years old, I worked at a company called 2020 Communications. I remember one of the first meetings I was in, they said the person with the most energy makes the most money. Enthusiasm is 51% of your sale, the spirit that I have within. You see, if you want to get somebody interested, you have to be interesting. If I sound like every other person that's came and knocked on their door, what's probably going to be the response that I get? Not interested. You want to get somebody interested, you have to be interesting. Right? One of the things I focus on. So clarity, repetition, energy, belief. Having an absolute catching belief about your product, your service, your company, why you're doing it, who you're doing it for. And number 5 is service, like genuinely caring, genuinely trying to help somebody, putting them into a better situation. You see, everybody in this room has a decision to make. I can be nice or I can be blunt. I can tell you the real things. And everything I'm teaching you is not just some bullshit. It's based on 17 years of spending time in my life experience of knocking doors and actually walking the walk, not just sitting behind doing seminars, but spending years and years and years of being the top sales professional to teach this stuff to you guys. The decision you have to make is you can take the path of the amateur or you can take the path of the professional. But there's a lot of dedicated sacrifice that's involved with that. It comes down to whether or not you're willing to actually pay the price that it takes to be great. Like I said at the beginning, are you interested or are you committed? You can make plays, you can make excuses, but you can't make both. So really breaking down the 3 most important fundamentals, something that I like to refer to as a success triangle, is your technique, your attitude, and your behavior. The technique is the words that come out of your mouth. Everything you say during your sales presentation will help you or hurt you. There's no neutral. Does anybody want to know what the greatest enemy is when you knock on somebody's door? Something else. What's from the homeowner? What's the greatest enemy? The greatest enemy is the client's fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. The greatest enemy is the client's fear. Nobody wants to be screwed. Nobody wants to be put into a bad situation. You see, when I knock on somebody's door, the anxiety is here and the certainty is down here. My goal is to shift that where the certainty is above the anxiety. Anxiety is the acid that wipes out somebody's enthusiasm and causes them not to move forward. So if the greatest enemy is the client's fear, one of the most important things I want to do is help them relax. So the technique, the attitude, and the behavior being 3 core principles. And I learned that from my mentor, Tom Hopkins. By a show of hands, how many of you guys have ever heard of Tom Hopkins? How many of you guys have read the book, How to Master the Art of Selling? Awesome. How many of you guys ever heard of J. Douglas Edwards? Okay, J. Douglas Edwards is known as the father of modern day selling. J. Douglas Edwards taught Tom Hopkins, and Tom Hopkins taught me. When I was 24 years old, I was interviewed by Grant Cardone on a show called Power Players after spending years, almost like a decade, being the top sales professional in my field. And he had saw that, and he said, Taylor, I want you to come to my house in Arizona and speak at my seminar in LA. I remember I used to live at the Natick Mall. I was pacing in my room. I was like, bro, this is Tom Hopkins calling me. I used to listen to this guy every day. You guys remember what a Zune was? The Zunes? Yeah, a couple, you either know it or you're like, what's this kid talking about? I had this Zune where I think it was like LimeWire or something. I had all the sales audios, and I used to fall asleep religiously. I dedicated myself to this craft. And when I flew to Arizona, I met with Tom, and I remember sitting with him as a 24-year-old, and I said, Mr. Hopkins, what would you say to a 24-year-old? What's the best piece of advice you would give me? And he said, I'll give you 3 things. And these things have stuck with me my entire life. The first thing that he told me is, Taylor, you have to do what you fear most. Do what you fear most. Okay? Fear, false evidence appearing real. Do what you fear most. A lot of the time, if you're in your comfort zone all the time, it's hard. But when you can step out of your comfort zone, that's when you can really step and, get comfortable being uncomfortable. The second thing he told me is something I say to myself every single day. We must do the most productive thing possible at every given moment. We must do the most productive thing possible at every given moment. How many of you guys ever feel like you have all this stuff to do and you get 10 things done 50% and then nothing ends up getting done? So I just use these stupid lines that I program into my mind to help me achieve, because it's not goal setting that matters, it's the achievement of them that really matters. You see, the average person spends more time planning out their 2-week vacation to Hawaii in every detail than their life's blueprints and their goals. What does a strobe light do? On and off, on and off, on and off. What does a laser beam do? Precise. Stupid question I ask myself all the time. Am I the strobe light or am I the laser beam? You notice yourself getting off track? Taylor, you're strobe lighting. You have to be the laser beam. Right? It's just check yourself. As Zig Ziglar says, it's time for a checkup from the neck up, to be able to check yourself. So am I doing the most productive thing possible at every given moment? Am I the strobe light or am I the laser beam? And the third thing that he told me was the best piece of advice I think I've ever received in my life. And I think this is somewhat of sales advice, but more of life advice. J. Douglas Edwards used to travel by coach bus. He did 75 seminars in a matter of 80 days. And if you ever hear Mr. Edwards speak, he uses a ton of energy. And one thing I love about J. Douglas Edwards is when he's about to have a nasty line, he's like, this one is murder. And then he drops the fire. But Mr. Edwards is up on stage, absolutely killing it. And he passes out. He falls on the stage. And they realized that he was unconscious. And they called an ambulance and they loaded him up on a stretcher. Tom was always a front row guy. He happened to be in the back of the room because he had a flat tire on the way to the seminar. He ran out the back. He grabbed a cab. He said, follow that ambulance to the hospital. They're going to the hospital. Finally gets into the room, is waiting and waiting and waiting. Finally sees Mr. Edwards, and he asked Mr. Edwards this question. He said, Mr. Edwards, why do you give so much? And the response that he got from that question was, the reason I give so much is because I always want to give people way more than they expect. Right? And that advice will stick with me the rest of my life. And that's what I intend to do today, is to give you guys way more than you expect. You see, the true professional realizes the more that they learn, the more that they know that they need to learn. The true professional will sit in a 5-hour seminar to learn one thing to help them think differently to apply to their game. Your life is like a stock. You get better or worse. There's no neutral. And there's 4 bones of every organization. There's the jaw bones. They like to talk about it. There's the knuckle bones that didn't show up for the seminar today. You've got the wish bones that want to be successful, but they rarely take action. And then you have the backbones of the organization. The ones that carry the heavy blocks that say, hey, this is how we're going to set ourselves up for decades to come. This is how we're going to set ourselves up to get to where we want to be. Right? And I'm rooting for you guys. I'm speaking to you guys genuinely from my heart today because this is where I'm from. You guys are the best salespeople in the world. Now just whether or not you take advantage of the opportunity. So the technique, the attitude, and the behavior. Technique is the words that come out of your mouth. If your tactics are sound, they can't fight you. I'm going to make a statement right now, and I want you to kind of engage you guys on what I mean by this. People are not buying because they understand what I say. They buy because they feel understood. What do you guys think I mean by that? People do not buy from me because they understand what I say. They buy because they feel understood. We have 2 ears, we have one mouth, asking a lot of questions, getting them to verbalize it. A lot of the time when I'm in a sales process, I'm like a police officer. Anything they say will be held against them. If I say it, they tend to doubt it. If they say it, then it's true. So being able to really engage these families throughout the process, and that's when I think about technique. This is J. Douglas Edwards right here.
To build theories into them, have to build tactics into them. And you build tactics only one way. Practice, drill, rehearse. There is no other way to go.
Practice. You memorize, you practice, you drill, you rehearse. It's called MPDR. Memorize, practice, drill, rehearse. Practice makes perfect. Who believes that? Who believes practice makes perfect? Who believes perfect practice makes perfect? Who said that? Practice does not make perfect, only perfect practice makes perfect. When you win the Super Bowl, you win this trophy. Lombardi. You're already switching it to the Brady trophy, huh, over here?
The Eagles had.
Vince Lombardi, right? Practice does not make perfect, only perfect practice makes perfect. And that's why dedicating yourself to the craft is so important. So how do I get sales, right? I tell people it's because I'm Irish and I continue to get lucky. I judge myself on 3 things every single day. I judge myself from 1 through 10, my level of effort and input. I judge myself from 1 through 10, on how interesting that I am. To create interest, we must be interesting. And the third thing I judge myself on at the end of the day is how much fun I had. If you're not having fun, it's not worth it, right? That's like one of the biggest secret ingredients to being really good at this. Right? It's completely up to you guys to take notes. I see some people over here, they're gonna end up with a lot of information programmed into their mind. Some people aren't taking notes. You guys don't have to be here. If you're engaged, awesome. If you're not engaged, that's up to you. But I can see the people that are locked in. I can see the people that want to learn. And I see the people that are just kind of like, do I have to be here? No one has to be here. I'm here to help you guys. So I really want you to be locked in during this session. Sales is the art of blending complete opposites. What do you think I mean by that? Blending opposites. I'm going to explain to you the easiest way for me to explain to you the way that I sell. What I'm doing is I'm weaving back and forth between opposites to be able to create the decision. What is closing? Closing is creating the decision. Closing is creating the decision. You really want to understand the psychology behind selling. It starts with the way that you guys think, okay? That's the secret. The way that I think create words. The words create an emotion. The emotion creates a feeling. The feeling creates a judgment, and the judgment creates a decision. Well, if closing creates the decision, if closing is creating the decision, when I knock on somebody's door, the way that I'm thinking right off of the bat, all I do is I teleport that energy to the families that I serve. Because they think something when I knock on their door. Words come out of their mouth. They have an emotion. They feel a certain way about me. They make a judgment, and it creates a decision. Well, if closing is creating the decision, it starts with the way that I think. The first part of my whole sales process is affirmation. This would be ridiculous. They've already been talking about this. I'm knocking doors in Florida. I got 2 5-star recruits with me. They sell medical device equipment. They're like, we make $82,000 a year. I'm on my way to the turf, driving. Rich Homie Quan, Some Type of Way song playing. Got the custom Breitling, feeling some type of way. I'm self-talking myself. Come on, T, let's go. It's going to be a huge day today. I pull up to the turf. I get out of the car. I'm like, hey, let's go. First house is going to be a sale. They're already talking about it. This would be ridiculous. They get crushed in sun. I pull up the home on my app that I used when I first knocked the door. I have the exact home that I'm knocking. Like, this is a done deal. They're already talking about it. This is what I have pulled up before I knock on the house. I have their sun hours. I was the one that completed the report for this location. I'm walking up the driveway. I'm like, bro, what's crazy is she was flipping out at her husband last night because he was playing Fortnite and she was cooking spaghetti, and she opened up the bill and it was ridiculous. And she's like, it's because you keep the TV on all day. And the kid goes, how do you know all this information? I said, don't worry about it. Because IASM, I am sold myself. The first person you need to sell before you knock on a door is yourself. So I go to the door, my range, my pace, my volume, my diction, I'm just absolutely on point. And I knock on the door and I go through my process. And this guy goes, this is a gated community. You're not supposed to be here. And he slams the door in my face. I look over at the recruits. I'm like, dude, that was nasty. We're on fire today. Let's go, baby. It was crazy because I thought she was the one that was upset at her husband, and it was actually the one over here. So let's go over to the next door neighbor. Perfect presentation, my pace, my diction, everything's on point. No soliciting, slams the door in my face. I'm like, bro, that was nasty. We're on fire today. When is a salesperson more contagious than any other time? Once they get a sale. But what do most salespeople do right after they get a sale? They go home. You see, a salesperson is first off a person that can sell themselves to themselves. They have an absolute catching belief about their product, their service, their company, and what they're doing. But what happens is you go out there, it's freezing cold, or somebody slams the door in your face, somebody tells you get a real job, somebody says there was already solar guys here last week, somebody tells you they're not interested, and then you start believing it. And then you start buying what they say, and you're not as contagious. Why does any practicing professional spend so much money on a reception area? Why would a doctor's office put a big fish tank in the reception area? Builds belief, right? If you're walking into a reception area that's absolutely trash and there's like chairs knocked over and it's dirty, you're gonna be like, bro, I'm not letting this dentist operate on my tooth, all right? Or something like that. You see, what happens is as sales professionals, right? If I'd have a chair up here, I'd kick it over. Sometimes I do, but that's what's happening is you're messing up your reception area throughout the day. So as sales professionals, my advice to you is stop focusing on what you're doing wrong and only focus on the things that you do right. You have to look at yourself like a prize fighter. So who likes boxing in here? Okay, can somebody give me an example of their favorite boxer? Who said Jake Paul back there? I'm just kidding. All right, so Bud Crawford, your favorite boxer. How does Terrence Crawford look at himself when he's walking into the ring? Confidence. He knows he's going to win that fight before the fight starts. But Terrence Crawford has something that sales professionals have too. It's a professional R. What does he need to do when somebody throws a punch at him? He has a professional, starts with an R, What is it called? Somebody throws a punch at him like this. It's a reflex, right? It's a professional reflex. And it's the same with sales, because some salesmen have professional reflexes and some salesmen have seal talk. If somebody throws a punch at Terrence Crawford and he needs to think about the punch getting thrown at him, what's going to happen? He's going to get hit. Speaking of boxing, how do most boxers get a knockout? Starts with a C. Most boxers don't go in there and throw one big punch and the fight's over. They set up a combination. It's the same in sales, how you create the decision. You create a combination for the excuse for the families to say yes. Because the families that you serve, the people that you help, they're going to look for every excuse to tell you no. How would you define what an objection is? What is it? Excuse? Okay, good. They're uncertain. Good. Really listen to what I'm about to tell you. An objection is a tactic used by the buyer to stall or prolong the final decision. That's what it is. It's a tactic. I have tactic and I have technique. Hey, the reason I'm calling by is a little bit different. I'll pretty much cut to the chase and give you the short version. Like, I don't know if you know, I have all my techniques that I use on the doors. They have a technique too. Somebody's going to win. They're either going to give you the excuse to tell me no, and they're going to transition me back onto the street, or I'm going to give them the excuse to say yes, and I'm going to transition into the home. You guys want to know how I handle objections, especially the first time that I hear it? Somebody can give me any objection. Any objection. Yeah, that's the thing. And I just keep moving. I don't address it because it's not really an objection. A lot of the times they're smoke screens. You know, if you bring it up a second or third time, maybe I'll address it. Hey, you obviously have a reason for saying that. Would you mind sharing it with me? But typically the first time I hear an objection, especially if I know it's a smoke screen, yeah, that's the thing. And I just keep moving. Because a lot of these tactics used by the buyers to stall or prolong the final decision is just to get rid of you. That's all it really is. J. Douglas Edwards says the reason that there's so many peons, the reason that there's so much mediocrity in the field of sales is because people only know one or two ways to transition or close a sale. There's different ways to handle different situations. That's why you need a bag. How many of you guys play basketball in here, right? You have your shots, your go-to shots. If you have only one shot and it gets stuffed, it's hard to win the game. You got to have different types of shots, get yourself to different points of the floor, you know, to be able to make the basket. And it's the same way in selling. One of the most underutilized things to handle objections, somebody just say not interested. Yeah, of course, sir, you don't want to buy anything, right? Laughing when you hear the objection, right? You're the fifth solicitor that came here. I get it, sir. It's getting a little bit ridiculous. You know, like people coming up to the door, by the way, I'm Taylor. Depends. It depends. Different buyers require different amounts of information. Old woman, oh, hi, ma'am. How are you? Sorry I'm late. My name is Taylor McCarthy. You're really busy? Yeah, sorry I'm late, sir. We did want to do about 2 more. Just give me 1 second. You're like, what the heck's going on? The number one rule of presenting is getting the family physically involved. You want to know what the number one most powerful technique in all of selling is? What do you think of the number one most powerful technique in all of selling is? You got to sell the wife, definitely. But the number one most powerful technique in all of selling, yes, it's good, but the number one most powerful technique in all of selling is control. Somebody's taking the command position in every selling situation, but there's an art. If I can take the command position by asking the right questions, I take their hand as the assistant buyer and I can lead them through the process. A lot of the times I go through my sales process and people are like, oh, that was a lay down sale. They said yes 84 times before we got to the end of the sales process, and there was no friction, there was no anxiety, because I was able to create the decision. Like at the end of the process when they're like, all right, awesome, what's the next step? That's the best things to hear. You know, not I want to think about it, or hey, can you leave me with information? Well, it's probably because you didn't have clarity throughout the process. When you overcomplicate the sales process, people get overwhelmed. My close is about 20 minutes. That's it. I have a line down the middle of a piece of paper. I show them the left side. I ask them questions. They answer the questions. I fill out the right side of the chart. I say, that's it. After showing you all this, is there any reason why you'd want to continue paying National Grid? When you overcomplicate it, people get overwhelmed. Typically, people tend to make it a much bigger decision than it really is when that happens. So this is how I sell. Blending opposites throughout the entire time. Sales is the art of blending opposites. Communication, it's not what I say, it's not how I say it, it's how I can make somebody feel. Persuasion, which is asking the right questions to solve people's problems. A lot of people think persuasion is a bad thing. It isn't. Persuasion is asking the right questions to solve their problems. So I'm constantly weaving, right? And I'm going to show you some videos today, you know, that kind of break that down of, you know, how I go through a sales process. We're going to break down some footage today. I'm going to break down some sets, and I'm going to break down some closes for you. I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by that, okay? So when I position the value, which is what most people don't know how to do, you prospect, you present, you position value, and you price. When you position the value, it's getting the homeowner to think, wow, I've never thought about it that way. This is the way I position value, and this is the way I weave. So just to make this make sense for you, sir, all we're proposing is utilizing the roof as a power plant to produce the power on site, where you're no longer at the mercy of the power company. The idea is the sun goes up, the bills go down. Actually, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the sun. It was invented maybe about 2 weeks ago. Right? Get them to laugh a little bit. Right? I'm blending. You're going to see in one of the videos that I show, the sale's not going the way that I want it to go, and I completely switch the conversation. Oh, you're a beekeeper? My Oma was a beekeeper. Do you usually like do it for the honey, or why do you guys like it? I'm scared of the bees, man. Right? And then the conversation completely turns. See, that's all I'm doing is I'm blending opposites. You want to know what the amateur does, though, when they get into a selling situation, when friction happens? They try to push the homeowner into doing it. I don't push the homeowner. I pull the homeowner. You guys understand what I mean by that? I'm not trying to get into an argument with the homeowner. I'm not trying to tell the reasons why they should do it. They have their reasons why they would want to do it and why they wouldn't want to do it. You know the best way to handle hostile people, right? Rejection turns me on. I'm amused by hostile people, right? The upper management's going to love this, but when somebody flips out at me on the doors, what I started to do now is they start getting mad at me. I just blame upper management. Everybody has upper management. I'm sorry, sir. Like the upper management like had me come out here. Like they're having me go door to door. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I was the one that put together the report because people empathize. You have to empathize with the families. So I have empathy for you. I get it, right? It's getting ridiculous. All these people coming door to door. But I want to be able to find that common ground with that family to be able to help them with this process because I know I can serve. Who knows the only objection that you face as sales professionals? The only objection you face, trust. Got it. Trust. It's the only objection you face as a sales professional. You see, I have a one-liner for everything. So the only objection I face is trust. It's like having a cell phone with no service. All you can really do is play games. I'm not here to play games, so I guess level with me. How much of what I said do you actually believe? Having different lines for different situations. If somebody fully trusts you, does that mean they're going to do business with you? If they fully trusted you, does that mean they're going to do business with you? Who said yes? So if sales is blending opposites, right? What else do I need to earn? I earned their trust, but I also need to earn respect. He's got it. You earn their trust, but you also earn their respect. Because perception is a very important part of being a sales professional, that you're really going to help them throughout this process. You see, I'm aggressive, but I'm kind. I'm assertive, but I'm nice. I'm egotistically humble. Crazy, you probably haven't heard that one before. Egotistically humble. What do I mean by that? Muhammad Ali says, I'm humble at home, but I'm not humble in the ring. Are you looking at yourself like Terrence Crawford walking into the ring when you're in the field? Or are you looking at yourself like, oh, I'm just walking around the neighborhood and, I hope that I get a sale? I'm humble at home, but I'm not humble in the ring. I turn into a prize fighter when I go to the field. And that's the way that you have to envision yourself, because a salesperson is first off a person that can sell themselves to themselves. There's two different types of ego. We've heard all our life, ego is a bad thing, it's a bad thing, it's a bad thing. There's two types of ego. There's ego drive and there's ego destruct. Ego drive is the way that you envision yourself. You look at yourself like a prize fighter. Ego destruct is when you start focusing on all the things that you're doing wrong and you start beating yourself up. A lot of people are constantly in this constant conflict because they want these motivators, like things that are going to help them in their life, but they're held back by these demotivators. A lot of people suffer from self-doubt while others are intimidated by your full potential. So it's like you making that decision to dial in, to become myopic on your vision. J. Douglas Edwards says the number one reason for mediocrity in men and women in the 1950s was their spouse not being on the same page with their significant other. How many guys really want to make it? Like, how many of you guys, by a show of hands, how many of you guys are in your first year in door-to-door sales? Okay, by a show of hands, how many of you guys have spent more than 3 years in door-to-door? Okay, anybody over 10? 15? How many? 18. What year did you start? 07, Pinnacle. I started in 08, 2020. So, 18 years in the game. Not, like I said, knocking doors, not amazing. People telling you get a real job, not amazing, but pretty much outlasting everyone. Let's give it up for him. 18 years in the game. You guys really want to make it though, right? And you say, hey, I want to set myself up for decades. There was a video playing up here before with Ben Grossman, my top student within Knoxstar University. He earned $2.1 million last year in commissions, no setters. He self-genned all his accounts. His Instagram bio was, I don't need your overrides, right? Because all he did was focus on setting and closing. And what's crazy to think about is if he made $2.1 million in 1 year selling door to door, and you go through the motions because you're interested and you earn 100K this year, you might be like, hey, I made 100,000, I did good. But Ben could go to Tahiti for the next 20 years, the next 21 years, you could go through the motions of making 100K every year. And 21 years later, Ben could come back from Tahiti and be like, all right, nice, we're tied now. That's why it's so important to dedicate yourself to your craft. That's why we talk about that willingness to actually pay the price that it takes. I think for me, it's like when you marry the game, when you say, hey, I'm going to absolutely commit myself to my craft. Your business is your gift to the world. Your business is your gift to the world. When you procrastinate, you ruin your future, you avoid the present, and you live in the past. I'm going to repeat that. When you procrastinate, you ruin your future, you avoid the present, and you live in the past. So when we procrastinate, we ruin we avoid and we live in the, okay, when we procrastinate, we ruin we avoid and we live in the, okay, so you really want to make it. This is what I would do. This is what I would do. How many of you guys have heard of the phrase, why are you doing it? What's your why? Who's heard that? Why are you doing it? Like, what's your why? I think it's a bad question. I think the question should be, who is your who? When I was 18 years old, 17 years old, 14 years old, my dad used to wake me up at 4 a.m. He'd drive me to the golf course so I could put my name on the list, sign my name to be the first golf caddy there so I could be the first golf caddy out, to come back to put my name on the list, to get another 2 bags to carry around the golf course. I watched him struggle. I watched him get down to his last $20. I was worrying about money at 14, 15, 16 years old. He'd have 20 bucks left. He'd wear the same clothes every time. And he'd say, hey, Taylor, let's go get you a pack of baseball cards. Right? He'd buy me a pack of baseball cards with those last 20 bucks. He really didn't even have anything. So for me, my who was always making my dad proud, watching him struggle, get down to his last $20. I said, if not me, then who? When I was 18 years old, I bought him an HD TV, and I was on the front page of a newsletter for 2020 Communications. 5 years ago, I bought my dad his own house. Being able to have those opportunities come with what we do in our profession. Because somebody's not telling you you're worth 20 bucks an hour. You're able to say, hey, I'm going to go prove it. This is what I'm worth. So the question needs to be is, who is your who? For me, it's always been my dad, watching him struggle, get down to his last $20, helping me, like setting me up to be able to become the man that I am today at 35 years old. When I think of the two most important motivators, it's the need to be challenged and the need to reach that next level of comfort. Right? Whenever my back's up against the wall, that's when I can perform at my highest levels. Two of the biggest demotivators is boredom and burnout. But you really want to make it, this is what you do. You go to who your who is, right? Maybe it's your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, whoever that is. And like you really want to achieve, because it's not goal setting that matters, it's the achievement that really makes the difference. You call that person, you say, hey mom, it's Taylor. I was seeing what you were doing tonight or tomorrow. I wanted to meet with you and have a real serious conversation, something that's been on my mind that I really need to talk to you about. I'll talk to you in person. If we can just sit down and have dinner, I really want to sit down and talk to you face to face. Right? Maybe it's your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister, whoever that person is. You set up that initial call. You sit down with them. You say, hey, I want to talk to you about something that's really important. And you look at them and you say, hey, this is the year we're going to make it. This is the year we're putting our last name on our back. I'm going to need your support because there's a lot of sacrifice that's involved. But if you can be on the same page with that significant other or your who on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and who you're doing it for, it's a lot easier to achieve. You see, you visualize what you want, and then you verbalize it. Like I said, Muhammad Ali's said, I'm not humble when I walk into the ring. Conor McGregor says, hey, a lot of people visualize and want to accomplish things, but they don't verbalize it. Right? Those are the jawbones. They don't verbalize it. And when you verbalize it, then you're held accountable. Affirmation without discipline is delusion. Right? We can talk about it all day, but first comes the action, then comes the motivation. It's a lot easier to act and wait to feel than wait to feel and then decide to act. First you move, then you have the power. Going back to you can make plays, you can make excuses, but you can't make both. A salesperson is first off a person that can sell themselves to themselves. We talked about the reception area. You go into that reception area, you're not going to be too happy. What happens is that's what reception areas look like at 4 p.m. when salespeople don't get the result that they want. If you can stay contagious throughout the entire day, that's what your reception area is going to look like. The hardest part of our job is timing, guys. You might not have a good look till 6 p.m. at night, but it's your job to stay contagious. Don't be the salesperson that gets the sale and then goes home. It's when you have that good look and focusing on what you're doing right throughout the day, focusing on the things that are in your control. When I put my energy outside of where I have my control, I wear myself out every single time. You find two people in your life, people that will inspire you or people that will drain you. I'm putting all my energy into people that inspire me. We said at the beginning, building is energizing, maintaining is exhausting. Building your health, building your wealth, building your team, building your company. When you start to build, you have a lot of fun, and that's the secret ingredient to this game. If you're not having fun, it's not worth it. How many of you guys have a 4-digit code on your cell phone? Everyone got a 4-digit code on their cell phone? Yeah? 6 digits? You got your code on your cell phone, right? What about the code on your mind right here? See, when people are negative, Tom Hopkins taught me this game. It's called the zip-zip game. It works like this. Zip, zip, zip. I am now in my positive shell. Okay, I've done that to a homeowner a couple times. They're like, what the heck is this guy doing, right? Sir, this is not a sales process. You're actually starting to make me feel a little uncomfortable. They can't really say anything after you say that. Zip, zip, zip. I am now in my positive shell. Okay, get your zippers ready. We're gonna play together. Get your zippers ready. We're gonna go zip, zip, zip. I am now in my positive shell. Everyone get their zippers ready on 3. 1, 2, 3. Zip, zip, zip. I am now in my positive shell. You have negative people around you, just play the zip-zip game with them. Here's the deal. You are not allowed to do that around your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. I'm not going to have it like, oh, honey, I learned it at a seminar today. I'm leaving. Right? Causing a divorce over the zip-zip game. The zip-zip game, staying in that positive shell. The way that you communicate with yourself is one of the most important things. And the behavior, the things that you're doing off of the doors needs to be to get you into the groove when you're on the doors. Who's this guy?
To talk about is easy to sum it up. When you just talk about practice. We sitting here, I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice.
We're talking about practice. Practice? Get your cell phones out. You might want to take a picture of this. Clarity creates conviction. Conviction creates belief. Belief creates energy. Energy creates repetition. Repetition creates service. Service creates your life's work. Your life work creates freedom. That's what you guys are working towards right there. You're working towards the freedom to be able to set yourself up. Some of your who's might not even be alive right now. How many of you guys don't have kids and want to have kids? You think about that, like, hey, I'm working hard for the kids that I don't even have yet, but when I have those kids, I'm going to be at every single one of their sporting events because I had dedicated sacrifice for over a decade to get to that point where I was allowed to do that. But what does it start with? The clarity of vision. A lot of people need to start making not to-do lists. Not to-do lists, not to-do lists. You want to really unpack and say, hey, what does it take to be the path of the professional where I'm no longer going on the path of the amateur? Here's a question you need to ask yourself. What is your kryptonite? What is the kryptonite that you have that's holding you back from getting your game to the next level? I'll tell you one of mine right now. I was addicted to the vape for a while, like 3 years. I was vaping, and I was addicted to it. And like 2 months ago, I completely cold turkey. I haven't vaped in 2 months, right? I was a slave to it, guys. You know, like, you're most qualified to help those people you used to be, but I used to be wallet, key, cell phone. Oh shit, where's my vape? Well, where's the vape store? I got to go to get a vape, right? You just have to ask yourself sometimes, what are the kryptonites that's holding you back from getting you to the point that you want to be? What does the best version of yourself look like? Not only the best version of yourself for yourself, but the best version of yourself for your family, for the people that surround you, for the people that love you. We only have one life to live, guys. You're not taking anything with you. You're not taking your, brand new car with you when you leave. You're taking the memories and the people that you were able to do it with. I'm a firm believer with people forget how much money they make, but they're not going to forget about the people that they made it with. Most important thing for me, I'm going to talk about here in a second, is do business with people you want to do life with. 3 people that you guys need to find throughout your journey. Very important. The first person you need to find is a mentor or somebody you want to emulate. One of the greatest things that's ever happened to me in my 17-year career as a sales professional is finding this guy, finding a mentor, somebody you wish to emulate.
You turn pro is the day you realize that attitude is telling us everything. Attitude is something that's built within yourself. You see, the most important thing you've got every day is your enthusiasm, your excitement for the job that you do with serving people. People say yes to you more on your conviction, your excitement, your enthusiasm than anything else. But if you don't have it in here, you can't transmit it out there. They drill, they rehearse. How often do you sit in front of the mirror and give your presentation and they laugh? Yet you studied so hard to pass an exam to avoid an F to impress your parents. What we're giving you is material that will impress everybody because of your income. Give them the best. No, thank you. Zach, I spent the last.
I wanted to share that because finding a mentor, there's 2 things that happened to me. One, finding a mentor, somebody that I wanted to emulate. And the greatest sale that I've ever made was making the decision to become a professional at the craft of selling, to dedicate myself to learning. Because the more that you learn, the more that you know that you need to learn. Constantly getting better, constantly learning different ways to create the decision, constantly thinking of ways to build value for the homeowner, constantly thinking about ways to position the value to get the families that we serve to think differently. But like I said, there's 3 people that you need to be able to find throughout this journey. You need to find that one person you wish to emulate and be like. You need to find one person that you're competing with. You need to find one person that you're mentoring. By a show of hands, how many of you guys have ever had a brand new person come and shadow them on the doors? You're like, hey, let me show you how this job works. You're gonna shadow me today. Did you guys sell better or worse? Why do you think you sold better? You're teaching, right? You affirmed what you were gonna do. You're impressing, like, hey dude, look, this is the best job ever, right? We get paid X amount. Good, right? And you start looking at yourself, like talking about the things that you do right. You're not gonna be like taking a brand new guy on the doors and the 3rd door be like, oh, this job sucks, bro. Like, no one's interested in solar. It's not going to happen. So you have the person you wish to emulate, you have the person you're competing with, and you have the person you're mentoring. Who do you think is the person you're competing with? I used to think the same thing. I used to think the same thing, that my biggest competition was myself. Back in the day, when we used to sell alarm systems, right? Worked at Pinnacle, Protection One, Platinum, all these companies. I'm in a bracket of 512 people. It reduces to 256. It reduces to 128. It reduces to 64. It reduces to 32. It reduces to 16. It reduces to 8. Now it reduces to 4. And they say, we're going to fly the final 4 to an undisclosed location. I had a Boston hat just like that. I'm in California. They say, hey, we're flying you to San Antonio, Texas. I realized that losing was not an option. I wasn't going to go fly to San Antonio, Texas to lose. Every single time that I faced a competitor, I would set that person as the background of my cell phone, right? I remember I was at a kitchen table in California. The guy's like, who's that? I'm like, bro, it's not like that. And I'm up against this guy in a competition. The idea, though, is I used to always think my biggest competitor was somebody else. And then I used to think it was myself. But being very blunt with you guys, and if you guys ever use SoundCloud, you guys know what SoundCloud is? You go to SoundCloud and you type in Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, and you actually listen to that audio. Has anybody actually listened to that audio, Outwitting the Devil? Crazy, right? When I listened to that, I realized my biggest competitor was the devil, right? I'm not here to talk religion with you guys. I believe that everybody's spiritual in their own way. But at that moment, I realized my biggest competitor was the devil. The devil hates that I'm telling you guys this right now. The devil doesn't want any of you to become the best version of yourself. But whatever's in your awareness is in your control. What's outside of your awareness is outside of your control, right? Like I challenge you to actually listen to that audio. I don't care what religion you are. It doesn't make a difference. It's more about life skills and understanding the things that are holding you back, these kryptonites that are holding you back from becoming the best version of yourself. Because what does the best version of yourself look like? You're most qualified to help those people that you used to be. I had a 1.8 GPA in high school, guys. I do not have a PhD, but I do have something called a PMA, which is a positive mental attitude. Frustration plus dwelling, you get mad, you quit, you withdraw. Frustration plus creativity is how you get better. Like I said before, he who angers you controls you. Putting this mental protein up here every single day allows you to operate at a different level. So the most important lessons that I've learned in my 17 years as a trick-or-treater, these were the best stats that I had in roofing. I did 114 transactions in 11 days. In solar, I did 74 transactions while traveling the United States in 30 days. Every single one is on camera. And then in alarms, back in 2011 or 2012, I did 45 alarm systems in a 6-day period. Number one, do business with people you want to do life with, guys. Most important thing. Top of the list for me. Going back to if you're not having fun, it's not worth it. Number two, alignment. Having trust, loyalty, longevity being 3 of the most important things that I look for in a business relationship. Number 3, first comes the action, then comes the motivation. Like I said before, it's a lot easier to act and feel than wait to feel and then decide to act. Number 4, you visualize for inspiration, but you verbalize to actually execute. A lot of the times when I set goals, I don't believe that I can hit them when I start. But as I start to move, then I start to have the power to produce. Number 5 is play the game. Have fun, eyes on the scoreboard. Losing is not an option. It's a big one for me. Losing is not an option. That's my rookie year selling alarm systems in 2011 at a company called Platinum Protection. Number 6, you have to include your family on the journey, right? My dad and my wife, right? Like, I'm blessed to be able to have my tribe. I think your tribe initially is your family, and being able to gain support from those loved ones is really important with what we do in our profession. We don't have 9-to-5s. You know, we have the ability to create our own wealth, but it takes a lot of sacrifice to get there. Temporary imbalance is how you get ahead. A lot of people ask me, why do you still knock doors? I like it. It's the game that I play. It's how I keep getting better. Research and development, I'm always thinking 2 moves ahead. Number 9, communication is what keeps that vision a reality. The communication. Contact beats content. How many guys are in sales management in here and manage other people? How many guys are in leadership? All you guys should raise your hand, right? In leadership. Who's the first person you need to lead? You need to lead yourself. What's the number 1 role of a sales manager? Is to sell a salesperson on selling. The easiest way for me to put it, the number 1 role of a good sales manager is selling a salesperson on selling. Number 10, vulnerability. Guys, vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation. And when you can really unpack these things on, you know, saying, hey, I'm going to go take the path of the professional. I'm going to be willing to actually pay the price that it takes. A lot of the time it's you versus you, but really making that decision to put in the work and have the dedicated sacrifice that it takes to be great. So I wanted to share some footage with you guys with actually showing you how I go through my sales process, whether it's a set or whether it's a close. I want to show you the example of me blending opposites. And then I want to show you a close that I think is probably one of the hardest closes I've ever had in 17 years in selling. But before I do that, I want to kind of open it up to questions. I want to open it up to takeaways.
Actually, top 5. What's the top 5 things you try to instill into your team and downline?
Yeah, so I'll kind of answer it, give you an answer. I know where you're going with this, but first off is compromising on talent within an organization is toxic. Compromising on talent within an organization is toxic. Going back to what I said before, people inspire you or drain you. You're looking for the basics, the answers that you already know. People that are competitive, people that are mission aligned with the team, all like the normal answers that you probably already know, competition. But what happens so many times is you bring so many people on to your team. When I first started in solar in 2014, I built a team up to 900 people all across the United States. My one main team had 250 people before they branched off and said, hey, we want you to be the director of the East Coast for Solar City. And one thing that I did that I felt like was really effective is I would interview anybody. I don't care if they had rainbow colored dreads. I don't care what they looked like. It did not matter to me. I would interview anybody. During the interview, if I was absolutely positive that you were a good fit, I would hire you on the spot. But a lot of the times I wasn't positive about bringing somebody in right off the bat. So what I would do is I would say, for example, so have you ever had any sales jobs before? Awesome. Have you ever like invested in your success? Have you ever like read any sales books? Nice. What sales books have you read? Awesome. Have you ever heard of the book, How to Master the Art of Selling? Okay. It's what I look at as the Bible of sales. It's like under $10. You can get it at a Barnes & Noble or you can get it off Amazon. If I was to give you your first task of getting How to Master the Art of Selling, how long do you think that would take you to get? I mean, it's just a regular book. Yeah.
I'll probably get it done in about 3 days or less.
Awesome. So what I want you to do is I want you to actually get that book and I want you to write me a book report on that book. And then once you have that book report, I need you to send me an email. And once I get that email, then we're going to schedule your second interview. The reason I would do that is because some people wouldn't even take the effort of doing what they said they were going to do. So it's like, why do I want to go through all the process of training them for 2 weeks later for them to leave? I want to put my energy where I have influence. Right? I'm putting my effort into the A, B, and C players. I'm not putting effort into the D players or the bottom of the pack. You focus on moving the middle. Typically, the top guys are going to continue to make plays, but my focus was moving the middle a lot. And I would delegate my authority, but not my responsibility. What do I mean by that? Delegate your authority, but not your responsibility. Hey, Billy, you've been absolutely crushing it, bro. A lot of people are starting to look at you like a leader. So with this next upcoming competition, we're going to make you the competition director. Meaning, you empower Billy. Billy comes up there. You've just delegated your authority, but not your responsibility. Delegation is a very important part as you start to scale your organization and as you start to scale your business. So great question, but those are the biggest things that I look for is, it's kind of like an instinct, but willing for somebody to actually, fully commit. You're looking for people that are committed. Skill set I can work on, work ethic I can't work on. Right? Most people are interested when they need to be committed. I'm trying to find the people that are absolutely committed and that will dedicate themselves because sales isn't easy. If, the people that miss their calling in sales are those that make the fewest calls. Okay. Any other questions? You want me to get into the footage? All right, we'll go into a couple more questions and we'll get into the footage.
Transition, how do you kind of wind down to transition perfectly into
How do I transition into the house or how do I transition into the close?
Yeah, so after you the major jokes and things like that and kind of
at the door getting into the house or I'm at the table transitioning into great question. Okay. So do you want to come up here? So how do I transition into the sale? You just let me into the house. The first step of it is I want to help him relax. After I help him relax, I'm going into something called an intent statement. My close is done with the intent statement. I'm setting up the close. I'm setting up the combinations from the very beginning to create the close at the end. And I'm going to show you how I do it. Awesome, man. So you said you were going to the Super Bowl party this weekend. Did you end up having a bunch of people over?
Oh yeah, it was a great time.
What'd you think of the game?
The game was, man, they got me down, man.
And are you a Pats fan or who do you like?
Of course I'm a Pats fan.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where we can't really root for the Chiefs because they would have had the three-peat. And then they would have said, oh, we had the greatest franchise ever. But I wanted to see a little bit of a closer game because I'm not going to lie, when I was watching the game, I wasn't as into the Super Bowl as I feel like I was in to past Super Bowls. Obviously, it's different because the Patriots aren't in it. I'm 35, so how old are you?
34.
34. So like we had the perfect life where we had like a championship parade every single year. It was like the Red Sox and the Bruins, the Celtics, and the Pats. It's funny, I was going to go to the Super Bowl when they played the Seahawks, where Butler had the pick right at the very end. I flew to Arizona. I got sick as a dog, so I didn't go to the game. And I was like, I'm so glad I didn't go to this game. And then the last play happened. I was like, oh my gosh, I should have went. But no, it was a pretty good game. First off, I really genuinely want to thank you for the time that you're even giving me. I always like to tell the families that I help get involved with this program to keep it somewhat exploratory, meaning my job as a solar professional is really just to show you the logic behind this. Like I tell families, we could take all the emotion out of this and just see if it's a logical situation where I'm just going to put a line down the middle of a piece of paper and I'm going to show you an apples to apples comparison. I'm a consumer myself, so whenever I put myself in this sort of situation, I don't believe in like high pressure, nothing like that. However, one thing that I am going to challenge you to do over the course of the next 10 to 15 minutes is I want you to look for every reason this does not make sense. And if you can identify the reasons why it's not going to help your situation, then you guys would just stay with National Grid and nothing changes. However, if we can only find the reasons why it would benefit your situation, the roadmap would be you'd go to the back of the line and there's 3 specific check marks we need to obtain. The first check mark is structural. Now, do you know how old the roof is?
About 10 years.
10 years. And are there any sort of trees in the back? I didn't see any, but okay, perfect. So that's our structural team that will actually be looking at the roof. The second thing is called interconnection. This is where National Grid's going to try to drag their feet. But the one thing I'm very blunt about is if the utility company doesn't approve the interconnection, then you guys would just stay with National Grid and nothing changes. So keep in mind, you would have to be eligible for this program. And the third is permitting. Once we're able to obtain all 3 of those check marks, we schedule an installation, the system gets installed, the system gets turned on, the sun goes up, the bills go down. That's the process. All I'm doing today is I'm just going to show you your exact situation, where I'm going to show you the situation you're in today. I go over these questions, I show you what we want out of it, then I'm going to show you where the panels are laid out on the roof and what your bill would have been last month if you would have already had solar. That's an example of an intent statement. I'm setting the stage for the sale. My close, guys, I promise, is like 15 to 20 minutes. Like at this point, like you become undeniable after you have hundreds of sales on camera. Everyone can talk about selling. What? Oh yeah, you're good. You're good. Everyone give it up for him. Who sees what I just did there? What'd I do?
Let's see. You said, let me help you get involved. You used the bandwagon effect by saying I help other families get involved.
Yep.
You used the word help. You said you put themselves in their shoes, being consumer too, so y'all try to be level. Then you gave them a task to pay attention. You handed them to pay attention by giving them a task. Then you asked them to convince themselves to find reasons to go forward.
I told them, I said, hey, I want you to look for a reason this does not make sense.
You did both sides of the spectrum. Yeah, you did both sides of the spectrum. You said ask a task for them for it not to make sense, right? Then you ask qualifying questions about the roof and stuff to validate them, see like you got to qualify. Then you did your takeaway because of the interconnection docs and stuff. And then you gave your one-liner about the sun goes up, bills go down. And then you said that you wanted to show them the situation that they're in right now so you could compare it with what they would end up becoming. So you threw the anchor far down.
You see what I mean by blending opposites? How'd that start? We started talking about football.
You talked the Super Bowl connected.
Help them relax. That's the communication portion. And then the persuasion portion is asking those questions. And I would constantly go back and forth between rapport building and talking about why it makes sense. Because the greatest enemy is the client's fear. I need to help that family relax. Notice I don't call they're not customers, they're families. I don't use the word appointment, I say pop by and visit. I don't say sign the contract, I say okay the form. I don't sell anybody anything, I help get them involved or I help them acquire. You know, these are nasty words that can cost you in a selling situation because it produces fear on the part of the buyer. Anybody else notice anything that I did during that intent statement? In the back?
Yeah, you painted a picture of what the process is going to look like, but because they're probably uncertain. So when you really outlined it for them, then it got rid of all the confusion potential.
Money, what he just said there was critical, because if there's a roadmap, it creates clarity. Clarity creates conviction. Same with the buyer. The clarity that they have within the process allows them to see the finish line. Overcomplicate the sales process, they get overwhelmed. Stop overcomplicating it. You guys are paid thousands of dollars to give away free money. That's the way that I look at it. Anybody else have any takeaways before we go into his question?
Yeah, so when you ask them for the objections, ahead of time you take control away from them with the objections. So they're not in charge anymore when they give you an objection.
Yeah.
If you don't prompt them, then they're throwing something at you, but if you ask for them, there's no more fight. Like, yes, I wanted this, so
Yeah.
you're in charge.
Huge money line right here. Psychology of yes starts with you. You are the product and service. E stands for energy. The people with the most energy make the most money. S stands for service. You, energy, service, psychology of yes. Psychology of no, lingering questions. That's why I have a slick with the 5 main questions: roof, move, cost, service, savings. Right? I bring those up beforehand. Psychology behind no, inadequate explanation of benefits. Being able to explain the benefits for the buyer. You know, it's a new sales technique that I started doing, which is absolutely murder, as J. Douglas Edwards says, is called reverse selling. How reverse selling works is something like this. Before I tell you all the reasons why so many families have gotten involved with this program, I'll tell you all the reasons why you should never go solar. If I was sitting here trying to convince you to go into debt, you'd probably tell me to kick rocks, especially if there was like a big loan involved. I position the value of the PPA against the loan, and when I sell the loan, I position against the PPA. So instead of saying, hey, these are all the reasons you should do it, I say, hey, these are all the reasons you shouldn't do it. If I was trying to convince you to go into debt, you probably would have told me to leave. Yeah, of course we would never go into debt. Especially if there was like a big loan involved, you probably wouldn't do that. And if there was a bunch of interest associated with that and it didn't have a full warranty and you had to worry about fixing the system, you probably wouldn't want to partake in that. The only way you would want to do it, and then you position the value of the PPA. So I talk shit about the loan, talk about the PPA, or if I'm selling the loan, I talk shit about the PPA to sell the loan. It's called reverse selling, completely switching it. Really good technique that's helped me get a lot of sales. We had a question back here?
You just said that you said you don't book appointments.
I pop by and visit.
Pop by and visit. What was the other few that you said you did?
They don't sign the contract. They okay the form. I don't sell anybody anything. Or I help them get involved, or I help them acquire. What else is there? The nasty P word. Who knows what the nasty P word is? The nasty. When I throw a baseball, what's that called? It's a nasty word, right? Let me hear you. When people say that around me, I'm like, yo, you owe 10 push-ups, right? That's the game that we play. We don't pitch, we present. Pitch is a baseball throw. It's an angle of a roof. It's a soccer field in Europe. So learning to get rid of these nasty words is critical. I try to completely eliminate certain words from my vocabulary because it produces fear on the part of the buyer.
Like when you got to the next level, you know, like you were doing door-to-door sales, you hadn't made any money yet, but you went from that bracket of 500 to that bracket of 250, 154. Like, what got you there, and then how did you continue to like do that psychologically?
Okay, I'm going to give you the formula. I think what you're asking is how to be able to scale in a sense.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a formula. This is another one I would definitely write down. I can tell you right now, these two have great notes. You guys are going to have a lot of mental protein. I see you locking in on the notes. And this, like I said, not taking notes, it's like eating spaghetti with a spoon. You're getting it on you, but you're not getting it in you. Repetition, you need to hear, read, and write say something 6 times to gain 62% of the retention. So this is the way that I would tell you to answer your question. There's 6 Ds of being able to scale your business. Another one you want to write down. It starts with having an ardent desire. The desire is where it starts. That's why we talked about who is your who. The desire leads to discipline. Discipline leads to demonstration. The demonstration leads to documentation, which is your story. The documentation leads to duplication, and the duplication leads to you disappearing and moving to that next level. I'm going to run that back. You see, if I have an ardent desire of why I'm doing something and who I'm doing it for, it's going to create the discipline that I need. Affirmation without discipline is delusion, and it will lead to depression and disillusionment. But if I have that desire, It will allow me to have the discipline, which will allow me to demonstrate. The demonstration allows me to document, to have a story. Nobody wants to be managed. Nobody wants to be recruited. People want to be impressed. And to impress other people, we must be impressive. And that's through the story that you tell. Oh, wow, this kid just got a brand new Tesla. I used to go to high school with him. You know, I remember he was this and this, and now he's doing all this. Well, I got to figure out more about that. And then you start to duplicate. And through duplication, you disappear and move to the next level. You'll never disappear if you don't duplicate. You'll never duplicate unless you document. You're never going to document something unless you demonstrate. You're never going to demonstrate something unless you have the discipline. You're never going to have the discipline unless you have a desire of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and who you're doing it for. So that's the 6 Ds of scaling my business. The best way that I could answer your question is it starts with you having this clarity of vision. Like 2 of the most important things that I would say to everybody, if you weren't listening the entire time and you're like, let me just listen to one thing, is having clarity of vision and TOD. Does anybody know what TOD stands for? Time on doors. What you do occasionally will change nothing every single time. But time on doors doesn't mean anything unless you're having fun, if you're not interesting, if you're not trying to throw a party out there. I don't knock doors, I go out there and I throw a party. I have fun. I make friends and I exercise. So whatever way that you want to envision it, like just think differently when you go out there. Reverse thinking. I never see failure as failure, but only as the ability to be turned on by rejection. I never see failure as failure, but only as the ability to be amused by hostile people. I never see failure as failure, but as a learning experience. I never see failure as failure, but as the ability to develop my sense of humor. I never see failure as failure, but as the game that I must play to win.
For you personally, what are your favorite times to knock doors? Like, what's your preference?
I don't knock every door. Yeah, I do knock doors. Like, I'm still knocking. I was out there in California. I closed 11 sales in 4 days in January. I'm stacking footage. I have like 26 YouTube episodes that are about to drop. Just, you're going to come back to back to back to back. My schedule, you want to be great, you don't have to do the schedule, but if you want to be great, this is the way the schedule works. 9 to 9:30, I go to a gas station, I have a cooler in my car, I fill it up with ice, and I set myself up with a mobile 7-Eleven for the entire day. That's the first thing that I do. From 9 to 9:30 is my first check-in window. From 9:30 to 10 is my window where I need to put myself in front of a homeowner. The reason I say I don't knock door to door to door is because I do not knock door to door to door. I knock people that have cars in the driveway. I knock to people that are home. My goal is not to knock 100 doors a day. I can't even remember the last time I knocked 100 doors in a day. My goal is to have 20 to 25 solid conversations a day. Quality conversations. So from 9:30 to 10, I'm looking for a house with 2 cars in the driveway, the door's open, I see smoke coming out of the chimney. I'm like, all right, they're home. I'm putting myself in front of somebody. Perfect house for solar. I want to give myself a good look early in the day. 10 to 12, I look at as bonus time. I look at myself like Christian Gonzalez playing cornerback. I'm looking to get an interception. 10 to 12 is bonus time. So many people wear themselves out early in the day. That's like kicking over the furniture in your reception area. 10 to 12 is bonus time. Shift 1 starts at 12 and it goes till 3. 3 to 6 is shift 2. 6 to 9 is shift 3. You see, there's 3 different days within my one day. So I judge myself, break it down to the ridiculous. Hey, 12 to 3, I didn't get the result I wanted. Well, let me go analyze how much fun did I have? Was I interesting? And what was my level of effort and input? When I set appointments, I set my appointments up after 9 p.m. I set them up early, 7 or 8 or 9 if I can. For example, if I set an appointment for 10 p.m. that night or 11 p.m. that night, then I can set myself up with a 10 p.m. appointment. Then I can set myself up with a 9 p.m. appointment. The best day that I've had was 7 self-gens and 6 of them got installed. That's all self-generated, no leads, nothing. But it's really hard to get 7 self-gens in a day. What I had to do was the previous day I had 2 or 3 or 4 appointments early and late in the day, and I just worked throughout the time and I maximized my efficiency, going back to we must do the most productive thing possible at every given moment. So that's how I'd break down my day. And you don't have to necessarily do it like that, but in any sport, there's quarters. And that's the reason that I set my day up like that.
You mentioned you have appointments that you set up. So when you're going door to door and you're going through your orders, how much are your sales like first time, you're selling them right away?
Yeah.
Do you come back, you try to come back later the next day?
Most of my deals are same day. I'm traveling a lot. It's same day or die. For me, I act like I'm super busy. Like I'm slammed the next like 3-4 days. You guys wouldn't happen to be here in like 30 minutes, would you? Oh yeah, we're gonna be here, right? And then I transition. A lot of the times, I don't even leave the house. I go right in. And the way that I do it is like this. This is how I transition to go from the door into the home. So we're at the point where I'm ready to get into the house, right? Picture we're at the pretty much end of the presentation on the door. So bottom line, you're gonna fall into one or two categories. Category one, everything that I just explained to you makes complete and total sense. Or category two, it just sounds way too good to be true. And you're probably sitting there like, what's the catch? The catch is simple. Now what do I have for the homeowners of their full attention? Why did you guys pick National Grid? Exactly, we've never had that second option. Like I mentioned, I was the one that put together the report. It's about 96% of the way complete. I just need to know roughly, I don't need to know like the exact amount or like the heart attack bill, but do you know roughly how much you guys spend a month for the power? 300, is that monthly or is that quarterly? So monthly average or a high bill? So what's the high bill? $700?
Electric heat, it's crazy.
You guys have electric heat here, so that's what it must be. But it's just a lot of the families that pay that high of a bill, they take the 5 to 10 minutes to look at this. But if it's a $300 average, let me just text George, he's my lead engineer. He's gonna get the last 4% of that design done. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you two things. I'm gonna show you exactly where the panels are laid out on the roof and what your bill would have been last month if you would have already had solar. Actually, I don't know if there's like a small corner of a table where I can kind of put my stuff down. Actually, do you need me to take off my shoes? Okay, perfect. I always slide a shoe off before they even say it. I've never had it where I've took the shoe off and they're like, oh, don't come in. But that's the way I transition into the home. Let's say I can't transition into the home because I need to come back, right? Let's say like it's a one-legger or whatever, and I want to take the sales process as far as I can. What I do, the first thing that I do when I knock on somebody's door is I have this app called Knock Buddy, right? It's on the App Store. It's $10. There's no monthly fees, nothing. It's the first thing that I have. What I have is the sun hours here. So if I knock your door, that's the first thing I'm showing you. Hey, I'll cut to the chase and give you the short version. This is 7280 Wright Avenue, is that correct? Cool, so I don't know if you guys saw the drones. Don't worry, it wasn't Russia, it wasn't China. I was actually the one that put together the report for this location. Pretty much what the yellow indicates is you guys just get absolutely crushed with sun, like on the back side of the home. Do you guys notice when you say solar a lot, people are like, oh, solar, right? Just say, hey, I don't know if you've seen all the panels. Just change the word solar to panels and watch, you'll get a better reception. Is this solar? Do you guys get that a lot? Yeah, so I handle it one or two ways. You could say it is solar related, but it does not require you to purchase any sort of solar equipment. Obviously, if I'm selling a PPA, I'll go to that. Is this solar? So it used to be about solar, now it's just whether or not you are paid properly. Did you guys already receive a negative statement from National Grid that showed something like this, like a do not pay electric bill? I want to create that curiosity. Or maybe I'll just say, yeah, that's the thing, and I'll keep moving. Sometimes I don't address those concerns until I hear it 2 or 3 times. You obviously have a reason for saying that. Would you mind sharing it with me? See, I have a one-liner for every situation. I don't like the way the panels look, right? Yeah, Judy was a little dramatic, but she told me she looked at her bank account more than she looked at her roof. What color is your roof, actually? You have to have different ways to handle different objections. One of my last sales I had in California, she's like, oh, $30 a month. I don't know if that's a big enough savings for us. Ma'am, just to kind of like help me understand, are you guys like trying to justify a way to pay more for your electricity? You see, I'm going to either find the excuse for them to say yes, or they're going to find the excuse to tell me no. One or two things happens. It's just who has a higher level of conviction when they're explaining the product and service. But your job starts when they say no. The average close comes after the 5th to 7th consecutive closing attempt. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. It takes 5 to 7 consecutive closing attempts to be able to create that decision, otherwise known as closing.
What do you do after those potatoes or before the roast?
Just a constant grind of trying to become the best version of myself. Like a long way to go, but just constantly trying to become the best version of myself, constantly trying to get better, replacing your entertainment with education, trying to create content. A lot of people are consuming. What are you consuming? You know, like it's not an egotistical thing, but I only follow 45 people on Instagram because there's certain things that are going to go into my mind that I don't necessarily need. One of the best lines I love is lead me, follow me, or get out of the way. So I'm constantly trying to create, and I'm trying to consume only certain things into my mind. And I think to become the best version of yourself, you just have to constantly work on yourself. And the harder you work on yourself, the better you are at your occupation. But by a show of hands, how many of you guys are setters in here? Everyone's self-genning in here? Everyone's self-generating in here? Certain people that are just closers. How many of you guys all knock doors? Yeah? If there's not any other questions, I want to play some footage for you and kind of do a breakdown of, cool. All right, let's keep going to the questions. I'm just going to start teeing this up real quick.
I got a quick one for you. Just because you've obviously been in this game for a long time, you said about 17 years where you've been knocking doors and staying close to the source of actually selling.
Mm-hmm.
I feel, and I talk to our guys a lot about this, I feel a lot of people, especially in solar, I'm not sure exactly why, but they'll have a little success knocking doors, they sell a few contracts, they get some great commissions that they've never made before in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
They start to have that itch to manage. They start to have that itch to have someone else go knock the doors instead of them, and they kind of get further and further away from the source of momentum and the source of their commissions and the real place where money is made and wealth is made and impact is made. You're someone who's standing here for 17 years, you're still knocking, you're still selling contracts. Can you talk a little bit about the importance on staying close to the source of the momentum selling?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time people see big paychecks and they say, hey, I want to do this. It comes back to a story that J. Douglas Edwards says. He said, if people go into a slump, it's because they stop telling the whole story. If you stop telling the whole story, you think, hey, I can rely on a setter, or I can sit back and wait on leads, being a lead baby, whatever you want to call it. But I think the reason people stop knocking doors is because they stop training. And training eliminates trying. I'm going to repeat that. Training eliminates trying. Right? He's been in the game for 17, 18 years, right? He's been taking notes, probably more than half the room in here. He's been doing it for 17, 18 years. Like, he could have came in here and said, hey, I've been knocking for 18 years. I don't need to go into the seminar. I don't need to go in to go learn something. But the true professional realizes the more that you learn, the more that you know that you need to learn, because you could pick up one-liner today on a selling situation that you might have not known before, and then it can be Operation Go-Go Gadget bank account, if you guys remember who Inspector Gadget was, because you get a 24 kilowatt after this because you're like, hey, the guy was going to say no, and then I used that one-liner that Taylor said. A fire one-liner that you can use is this. Sir, obviously they aren't. But if the panels were on the roof, what do you feel like your biggest concern would be? Right? Sometimes when the sale's not moving in the right direction, I'll use that so many times to turn around the sale. Obviously they aren't, but if the panels were on the roof, what do you feel like your biggest concern would be? Sun goes up, bills go down. Have you heard of the sun? It was invented 2 weeks ago, right? Sales is the art of blending complete opposites, communicating and persuading, being able to lead that family through this process, being an assistant buyer.
Do you say that after like a rebuttal?
In what situation?
Are you on the tours with that?
Obviously they aren't.
Yeah.
So I'll show you, like I'll show you in this, but like that's typically if like the sale isn't, they're like, oh no, I'm not interested, blah, 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 blah. And then I'll just like stop, like mid-sentence. And like, I might use a line like this. Sir, may I just have your permission to be blunt with you? Obviously they aren't, but if the panels were on the roof, what do you feel like your biggest concern would be? Because then I can isolate what the true objection is. I'm not bringing that up if the sale is going good. I'm only bringing that up instead of pushing somebody to be like, oh, these are the reasons you should go solar. And they're like, I don't want to go solar. It's going back to that creating the decision. All right, let's see here. I want to share. All right, so this is like a great example of what I was just showing you guys. This kid made $2.1 million selling solar last year, all commissions. So this guy's outside. Watch how I start this presentation. I want you to see, and you'll see where I said obviously they aren't. You'll see kind of break it down. I want you guys to watch this and then get some feedback after we play. I'm going to play 2 sets and I'm going to show you guys a close.
Is this Cornell Road?
Is this Cornell? Whenever somebody's outside, that's money for you guys to remember right there. Whenever I see somebody outside, right, they're like, oh, door-to-door salesman, right? Not like, hey, how are you? You know, you interested in this? I'm like, hey, do you know where Dawson Avenue is? Like, I act like I'm lost, and they're like, oh, yeah, it's right over there. They start to engage me. I'm like, what about Fifth Ave? And they're like, oh, this is Fifth Ave. I'm like, oh, this is Fifth Ave. And then I go into the presentation. So yes, small little yeses throughout the process. So we ended up getting the bill. We did not end up closing it, but it's pretty cool, right? Taking that person pretty far in the process. I think sometimes people are waiting on the result every time, but I take that as a win and I take that energy going into the next door. So I wanted to show you those sets. And do you guys want to see a full close really quick? Yeah? Okay, so let's play a full close for you. And then we'll go into any other questions. Are you guys getting some value out of this? Are you guys happy you're here? Cool. Well, I want to let you know I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy that you guys are here taking the time to listen to me. You could be doing a bunch of different things right now, but like I said at the beginning, training eliminates the trying. And you know, I think at the end of the day, this is such a good opportunity for you. Yep.
I see the way you're knocking. I see you got the briefcase situation. So are you having like a multitude of different like slicks?
Yeah, I have. I just don't have them with me, but I have a whole arsenal. If you go to knockstar.com, you can get the slicks, both sets of slicks for PPAs and for regular slicks. And bro, if you watch my YouTube videos, you'll see how much I engage them. The number one rule of presenting is getting the family physically involved. So like, it's easier if I show you. I don't know if you kind of knew about it. Actually, if I show you really quick, and then I walk out, and then they follow me, and then I take it out of their hand, and I flip it over. I put something else in their hand. I have slicks like the 5 main questions. The goal is to take you from the red to the blue. Like me without slicks makes it a lot harder for me to create the decision because people learn by hearing, reading, writing, and saying. Sometimes it's a battle, you know, but that's, you know, if I wasn't that persistent, that family wouldn't have the solar panels installed on their roof right now. It's not what you sell, it's also getting it installed on the roof. So that video is cool, but if I didn't get it installed, it didn't mean anything. So, you know, they tried to give me every reason why they wouldn't want to do it. It's just I had a deep down level of conviction on why they should do it and why it makes sense. Like I started the meeting is you can make plays or you can make excuses, you can't make both. You know, it starts with you having that clarity of vision. When you have that clarity of vision, you have your technique, the words that come out of your mouth, your attitude, what you program up here, and the behavior of, you know, really making the decision on what it takes to go pro. So training eliminates trying. You can use my YouTube channel and learn 17 years of sales skills, watch live sales. But I'm a firm believer in going to find the top salesperson in the office and going to do exactly what they're doing. Success leaves clues. You know, I had one kid and he had been selling in Las Vegas for 2 months. And I said, how many sales have you gotten in 2 months? He said 0. I said, well, in 2 months, you've got 0 sales. How many sales have you seen? He's like, I've never seen anybody make a sale. I was like, all right, well, come watch me. We did 14 sales in 5 days. Saw my Instagram highlights. And then the next 2 days by himself, he got 3 sales by himself. So when you can see somebody else go through the process, the communication is what makes that vision a reality. I would go find the top salesperson in this office and ask them to mentor you. Typically, the top salespeople like to mentor other people. That would be my advice. Yep.
I kind of understand how like you're traveling and, you know, going to different state to state, community to community. But if you're doing them high numbers where you're doing like 10, 5 days, if it's with a particular company, how are you scheduling your closings on top of new business? Are you spending a full day on closing all the deals, or you're like, I come back in 30 minutes, you try to just go ahead and combo it, get it done?
So the way that I run my business model is the companies give me a fee for my service to actually come out there and help them. After I sell the account, the person with me manages the project. So they're in charge of managing the project. They're in charge of going back to the home if they need to get any other pictures. But for me, if I'm in a market, let's say for 2 days, and the homeowner's like, hey, can you come back next week? You know, I just show them my schedule. I show them my Instagram. I show them these things. I show them my YouTube channel. I say, hey, I'm really not coming back. I got a flight tomorrow. I'm going here. You know, I say, you can do this with anybody, but if you want to do it with me, I'm going to be able to serve you at the highest level. And I create that decision. Sometimes I'm not able to. Sometimes I have to schedule them the next day, but I've never really had luck with scheduling people out more than a day. You know, like if I can same day it, I want to same day it every time. If I can one touch close, I want a one touch close. Now, here's the thing. Some people say, don't one touch, you got to two touch, you got to come back the next day. I believe to take the sales process as far as you can every single time. I believe in taking it as far as I can every single time. Even on one-leggers, I'll take the sale as far as I can. And if they say, hey, they need their wife or their husband there, I'll show them everything but the design, and then I'll schedule a time to come back. You see, when I set an appointment, it's more likely that that appointment sits if I set the appointment at the kitchen table than set the appointment on the door. You know, always trying to get into the home. Two things that most sales professionals lack is they don't transition enough and they don't take it away. I'm always taking it away. If you were eligible, you know, if you did qualify for the program. They asked me a question. It's getting a little chilly out here, sir. Would you mind if we stepped inside and I can answer your questions? Do you need me to take off my shoes? Right, small little things like that that create the decision more. We had one more question in the back.
So what's your buttoning up process looking like when someone's already signed, you already signed someone up, to make them feel comfortable with everything?
So after I sign the homeowner up?
Yeah, after you sign them up, to mitigate cancellations.
Great question. I'm going to pull up this, which I keep on my iPad. I try to almost say this word for word. So I pretty much say this to eliminate cancels. You know, first off, I want to thank you guys for having me stop by. I appreciate your trust in me. Now, we went over a lot of information tonight, so naturally you're going to have questions about what we discussed. I called them the big three. You'll have 3 questions that make you feel that gut wrench in your stomach. It might be what happens if the system breaks. Then you'll remember there's a 25-year warranty. It might be, hey, what if I move? Then you'll realize it's completely transferable. It's completely normal. When this happens, just call me. We'll talk about it. It's super normal, so definitely don't stress. 3 ways to eliminate cancels besides that little paragraph that I have on my iPad. 1, I let the homeowner know that every Friday between 5 and 7, I'll call them and check in with them. You dedicate 2-hour period, 1 day a week to checking in with the homeowners. So, hey, I just want to let you know, the utility company is going to try to drag their feet. They're going to look for every reason not to approve this program. I want to let you know no news is good news. However, every Friday, I'm just going to give you a quick check-in. I get onto emoji-based relationships with my homeowners. Why would I get into an emoji relationship with my homeowner? Friends, right? So I get into this emoji-based relationship with the homeowners. I check in with them 1 day a week for that 2-hour period. They know that I'm going to call. They know I'm going to text them. Another couple things that you can do, because buyer's remorse is a real thing. Typically, if somebody is going to cancel, they're going to cancel the next day. It's not going to be like 4 or 5 days later. It's typically the next day. So I always call back, and I'm like, you know, sometimes, not always, sometimes if I'm unsure about the sale or it's like, it could go either way, I might call them and be like, hey, how's it going, Patty? It's Taylor from yesterday with the solar. Hey, I completely forgot to tell you, and then I'll reach back for a benefit that I didn't tell them. Like, there's an app that you're going to get on your phone, or there's this. Handwritten thank you cards, leaving them in the mailbox. You want to know a really good one is you go to Walmart and you buy a house plant, those small little like $10, $15 plants, and you go back to the home and you give them a plant. Small little things like that. I had one woman, she loved reading books, and I told her about this movie called Lost City of Z. My wife is from Peru. And I was like, yeah, they went and visited Peru, and it was the first time inhabiting it. And she's like, oh, I would love to read a book like that. And I'm like, yeah, there's a movie about it. And then I Amazon one day primed her something at her house right then. Those small little things like Amazon one day prime, and they get a gift to their home the next day. And they're like, it's a little thank you card, small little things like that. It's like a $6 book that I invested on a 17 kilowatt. Oh my gosh, Taylor, thank you. You didn't need to do that. So small little things that I do. But another thing that I do is I save their number into my phone, and I make them save their number into their phone. That's another small thing, because when you get phone calls from numbers you don't realize, what do? You don't pick them up. So these small little fundamentally sound things that you can do to ensure that the sale, but I think a big thing is selling it the right way. I always collect ACH on all my accounts. You know, if they don't have ACH, then I don't submit it. You know, there's like 1 or 2 situations with the older person that's never done ACH or doesn't do that. But a lot of the time you try to skip that step of being like, oh yeah, you can just give us the ACH later. Hey, we're going to schedule a site survey and then you can let us know then. You know, I like to say, like, if the survey came back and they told us everything would be good, are you genuinely open to actually having the panels installed on the roof? And if they're like, well, we're not sure, then you missed a step. Couple things that I say throughout the closing process is, how you guys feeling about all this so far? Are you guys pretty excited about this? If they don't feel good about it and they're not excited, you need to go back in the sale and take a couple steps back because you didn't sell it correctly.
Yeah, just like at the end when you did the video, we congratulated them for taking that step.
You want to know another thing I do? Who knows about the video that I post on my Instagram? Okay, so you guys don't know, a couple of you guys know about it. All right, so like, let's say I just finished up the transaction with you. Come here real quick. So, but you guys don't know the second part, right? So come on up here. What was your name? Ricky. Ricky, okay. So we just completed the sales process. This is what I do. All right, Ricky, so this is my favorite part. I want to ask you a question. I want you to be as blunt as possible, okay?
Sure.
Okay. All right, guys, so I'm here with Ricky at 364 Dudley Road. And Ricky, I have a question for you. Hypothetically, if I snap my fingers and you had the solar set up on the roof, you had the $156 fixed amount, and you were cooking breakfast and you heard the doorbell ring and you went to check who it was and it was National Grid, and National Grid tried to convince you to rip the panels off the roof and go back to the $220 bill that they charge you today, what would you say?
Hell no.
But what if they were like, please, Ricky, pull off the panels, come back to us?
No, give them the boot.
You'd give them the boot. You heard it here first. Awesome. I take that video after I post it on my Instagram and I text it to them.
I love that.
So they said it, and then if they try to cancel, I'm just going to question mark the video. Like, Ricky, is everything okay? But I get them to tell me the reasons they should do it. Like, so why do you feel like this program makes sense for you more than the utility company? What else? That's a good question. When you ask a question, you say, what else after the initial question? Why does this program make sense for you? What else? And then now they're telling you the reasons it makes sense. And that's how you create the decision. So thank you guys so much. We've been here for 2 hours. I really appreciate you guys' time. All right, and that's a wrap. That's our 4th stop here in the Torday, Massachusetts. We had the doubleheader. We've got a back-to-back doubleheaders tomorrow, as we're going to start off in Leominster, Massachusetts. We're going to make our way over to Danvers, Mass. Sell some salesmen on selling. Massachusetts salespeople are the best in the world. Whoever wants a challenge, come get it. Let go.
I be living life just like a rock star. Don't you know that I'm a mother effing rock star? Yeah, I be in them streets feeling like a mob star. But you know I'm fresh to death, I'm eating shrimp and lobster. Yeah, I said.